Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. I'm Charles Adeniyi, and this is the part of the program where we invite our guest analysts to assess what you've heard on the program so far and to explore the stories and issues of the day. And for that, we have the current affairs analyst, Professor of Communications and Deputy Dean of the Postgraduate School at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Prof, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming in. Let's start with Osaze Uzi Oluwole. He was the first guest, and of course he used to be the Director of Legal Services at INEC. And it was just really interesting hearing him very lucidly telling us how he reckons things are unfolding, and a central issue in his assessment, obviously, the use of technology in this last election. And a central question is whether it's mandatory for INEC to transmit results electronically or not.
Yeah, I think it was quite insightful, coming from the experience of somebody who has worked in INEC before, provided some insight, useful insight. Some of the things we didn't know before, some of the things we took for granted. Of course, he provided clarification, and against the background of the time we're actually in. But again, back to your question, what it tells us again is that we cannot really, INEC has made their own point clear. What is left now is for the courts to now decide for us, as the case could be. We are almost tired of expressing our own opinion, saying whether the fact that the results were not instantaneously transmitted to IRF, whether or not the result is credible or not credible. All that points, argument and counter-argument, have been made. What is left now is for the courts to now decide
you're a professor of communications. And I mean, you know this better than I do, that journalism abhors a vacuum.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to keep going over it.
But the deduction that I'm having from all these charts is that democracy is very laborious and painstaking.
Absolutely.
And it also requires patience and perseverance and tolerance, because at the end of the day, you find out it's one system of government that is integrative, good for a kind of country like this. But we have to be ready to tolerate the frustrations of democracy. And what are these frustrations? Sometimes outcomes may not be the way we want. Sometimes it could even be the way we want, but we'll still find out that there are still some limitations that we'll have to pull through. Imagine after the labors of the pre-election stage, the election itself, and the post-election stage, we are still into anxious moment through the judicial process. You can see how tasking it can be, and that's why I'm saying it can be very strenuous, emotive.
Absolutely.
But again, we have to learn to develop our democratic temperament if we have to deepen our democracy.
That's a very good point, and I think what is also very important. As that, because the point you're making is that it's building up again that sense of anticipation, anxiety,
building
and all
up
the rest
again,
of it.
I mean, we just recovered from it through the election proper.
Absolutely.
But we are now in the final stage, which is judicial intervention.
Absolutely.
Anxiety is coming in again, and of course, this time around, it's not just the entire mass of people deciding, but just about 20 or so men. Men with wisdom.
There are women there as well.
Women and women to decide for us. Well, that's what it is. That's what the Constitution says, and we have no option other than to abide by it.
And what is very interesting about this is that it could easily be decided, not even on the big issues that are before the Electoral Commission. It could just be decided on technicalities.
Yeah, but that's, I think it's just a process, very unfortunate. And that's why we keep talking about, having legitimate people in government as against people who are legal. That's why we're concerned about not just getting about knowing the truth and not just justice. About not just judgment but justice. Because if we resort to court, we should be ready. It could just be a matter of technicality. And if it is technicality, of course, there will be complaints. But it's going to come again because of our own disposition to go to court, or probably to think that we want to contest the outcome of election, whether rightly or wrongly. It is part of the process. And the admonition we are making is that we have to be ready for it, as the case could be. Nobody is saying that people cannot resort to court. That's the constitutional route to take, after outcomes have been decided by the electoral umpire. But we're just saying that we have to be ready in the post-judicial intervention stage to also learn to live with the outcome, whether on technicality or otherwise.
That's very good advice. Let's turn to the other guest, Chima Christian. He's a public policy analyst, and he was emphasizing, we're talking about the census, and it's coming up in May. He was emphasizing the fact that an accurate census is an important tool for development. And on that basis, it would probably be worth postponing the election in order to get it right. What is your
I thought it made a lot of sense, but we also have to realize that in our system...
Are you saying election? I mean census.
Yeah, he made a lot of sense. That's what I'm saying. That he was very, very excellent in his delivery. That's the man who, the last person who interviewed on census. Yeah, it was very brilliant, very detailed. And I can't agree with him more that we're just coming out of the election period. We're almost jaded, we're almost tired, the system is stressed. And of course, on the back of that, we're not going to have a major national event again. Good as it might be, and I think it's something that we need to rethink against the background of the delicate transition period that we are in.
Absolutely.
Just a few days to another government coming in. There's a lot of anxiety in the air. There's a lot of nerves are frayed. We need these nerves to be these frayed nerves to be resolved, to be dissolved, as the case could be, so that we can now steady the ship of states onto another platform.
The point you're making and the point he was making makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
but you wonder why it is that the government is insisting on doing it. Is there a political reason?
Well, I'm not sure.
Like they want to take credit for it before.
Yeah, I'm not sure government is going to go ahead with it. Sometimes it might be the handiwork of the agency, in charge of the project, and the government may not really be interested. But if the agency make the argument, provide justification, government may not have option but to proceed. But we have to underscore the fact that in our system, censors are largely, political exercises rather than economic. And we have to know that they are very important, for planning. Nobody is saying that that we shouldn't know our actual number.
It's a matter of doing it at the right time.
After 17 years, nobody is saying we shouldn't. Of course, we haven't grown up to like other countries where you don't have this physical counting. You just have them doing minuses and pluses every other year through deaths and deaths, immigration, births and all of that, and they get their census right. We're not at that level yet, so we need this physical general counting, but again, the timing has to be right.
Yeah, and are you astonished that after more than 60 years as a nation, this country has difficulty conducting things like credible elections and credible censuses?
That's a very fundamental philosophical question, Charles. I'm not surprised, but it's just regrettable, and it just takes us back to what we've been talking about again, that if we have the right policy direction, and of course we have the right leaders, sets of leaders, not just one leader this time, driving the processes, driving the procedure, inspiring the populace, towards the right direction, rising above our differences, being elevated above our classifiers, and letting us know that we're one and we cannot make progress if we're not one, no policy will actually work, because through policies we begin to see nepotism, we begin to see favoritism, we begin to see ethnicism, and by the time citizens begin to see all these things, they get discouraged, and they pay lip service, to matters Nigeriana, as the case could be.
Prof, thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is a current affairs analyst, professor of communications, and deputy dean of the postgraduate school at Bayes University in Abuja. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.